Called Peter Griffinism is what I called it.
Okay.
All right. And let's see if the feed is connecting. And we're live.
Called Peter Griffinism is what.
Hello, everyone. I am the Night Watchman. This is Dust Kitty, and this is Del Mari.
I love how that. I love how that one of the things that you see in the stream is literally the penguin that just says masturbate.
Pardon that meme. Del Mari posted that. It was It's incredibly random, but anyways, I don't have this stream monetized anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh,
Why I
I was
say
just
nothing
looking
like
at the meme. I had to click
Peps,
the
ketchup, Pepsi,
show
and wrapped
messages.
cheese.
I had to click the show messages button because I have this doofus blocked.
Wow.
Oh, filthy?
I invited Lord
Okay.
Phil. You're welcome.
Oh well, I wasn't expecting to
Hi.
hop on this stream, but nice to welcome you.
Oh, hi.
Anyways,
Ooh, I want to tell you something. All right, so I'm making a ROM hack of Mega Man 2, which is going to be the Judging part 3.
So you're
Not
just
only
not
that-
going to be on topic, are you?
But no, here's
well,
here's
anyways,
the cool thing
the
that
topic.
Filthy would
I'm
love.
trying to get the topic at hand here.
Papa is a boss battle.
Okay, Domari, we're trying to stay on topic
That's
here.
all I wanted to say to you. Oh, yeah, hi.
Okay, as I was saying, to anyone watching this or to any future viewers of this stream, I have to let you know that I am now a voluntarist. I have completely stopped with the minarchism arguing for the state because I agree with Filthy that the state is just a monopoly and arbitration. It has no legitimacy. It has no right to exist. And to have a truly free society, we don't need a state. That we can have voluntary association among people, and that's all we need. We don't need a top-down bureaucracy stealing our wealth, telling us what to do with our bodies, what to smoke, what to drink, what to shoot. And the government has never been on our side when it came to protecting our rights. And I've just come to realize that now, is that they'll always make exceptions to the rules they make. They'll always try and find ways to bend the rules in their favor. They were never on our side. They were never on the people's side. And I realize that now.
Took you long enough.
It did take me a long time, struggling with cognitive dissonance, and it was a lot of cognitive.
What made you make this decision? Was it just leading up to it? You got over your cognitive dissonance, multiple conversations with Lord Phil? Like, what made you finally come to this conclusion?
What really shocked me awake at how fundamentally unjust and unjust any state really is was the incredible amount of voter fraud that went into trying to get Joe Biden in office. This system has no legitimacy, and in fact, probably all. And from there, I realized, well, if the so-called freest nation on earth has resort to voter manipulation just so the powers that be can get their candidate into power, then what true democracy do we have? And I realized well, can true democracy really exist? And at that point, I realized, you know what? All governments are like this, and we're better off without them.
Would you say that the voter fraud even mattered in the first place? Don't you think that both candidates would have been chosen by the powers that be? Does it matter which one it is?
Well, Trump was always a bit of a wild cat outsider, but I agree with Filthy that he still operated the state apparatus of theft and force and kidnapping you and throwing you in cages. And, you know, I kind of realize that now. I'm kind of over being under Trump's spell at this point. I can see him for what he truly is.
Yeah, he never did anything differently, right? Oh, go ahead, Lord Filth. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just going to remark that I don't blame you in the least for, well, taking as long as you did, because, well, you're kind of having to break through literally centuries of indoctrination. You have, of course, indoctrination in government schools, but it's also being reinforced by culture, which is highly influenced by the state incentives, state monopolies, and even outright state control of the media you consume, which any fictional story you're going to see are always going to presuppose that government is good, government is legitimate, government is right. When you have a fictional story that depicts a rebellion, they're not really revolting against the state as a conceptual concept. They're just trying to get their own state in opposition to, you know, the evil state. To say nothing of the fact that everyone around you is also going to reinforce this. So there is tremendous peer pressure to be able to participate in society. You have to intellectually conform to whatever abject nonsense is taken for granted as absolute fact. So yeah, like breaking through that is tremendously difficult. And honestly, that's probably the hardest thing to do. And well, I am proud of you for doing that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not trying to be condescending, but I mean, that is something that I think you should genuinely take pride in.
And I do. I'm proud to finally be able to think for myself and to be a free, self-owning individual. And I wouldn't have been able to be even brought here if it wasn't for me wanting to try and debunk that one video of yours way back in 2018. And I guess it was kind of meant to be, almost. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think you have quite a bit of ways to go, because I think we talked about this before, not on any stream, of course, but just in conversations, that there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to start to see in a different light that you previously aren't going to be thinking about now, because it hasn't occurred to you yet, and because you haven't encountered that, the things are just going to seem, well, a lot different.
Well, that's what comes with it. It's just I don't want to sound like a try-hard beam lord here, but I took the red pill, and my whole perspective on how this world works has completely changed. That it's always...
I appreciate what you... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
That for centuries, it's always been about a power struggle between these gangs of thugs versus gangs of thugs, manipulating the masses into giving up their rights, their wealth, and centralizing it under these so-called states. Basically the elites get fat and rich, while everyone else gets screwed under the statist system. Well, in a true and could you say much has really changed? I mean, even going back to the American Revolution, it's always been about replacing one state with another state that basically ends up doing the same shit it revolted against. And I realized that if we want a true free society, how about we just stop playing that game and try something and try to just live, that we don't need government, that we can form relationships between individuals, that we can form boundaries between individuals, and without a state telling us what to do. I mean, I don't need the government to tell me what's right and wrong. I know killing an innocent is wrong. I know stealing is wrong. Because, well, I don't want to get too deep into the philosophy of it, but I was raised in a, I mean, I still am a Christian, and I know people probably want to have a problem with that, but I was raised in strong Christian values, but that didn't require a state either, of just kindness and compassion and giving. And what is a state? A state is anything but that. If we want to truly have a society in which we can truly be ourselves, to be true to ourselves, and to truly treat each other with fairness and justice, real fairness and real justice, not this fake justice that's pushed by these radical leftists, then we need to live voluntarily, not submit to this state control and state indoctrination. We all need to unplug.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is more, like, just digging down a little bit, like, what's wrong with the statist idea of justice? In your words.
What's wrong with the state's idea of justice in that it often punishes people for completely victimless crimes and for situations that shouldn't even be crimes at all. People just get arrested for smoking a plant or simply running a business without the appropriate licenses. Well, if you have the skills and you have the resume, why do you need government permission to operate a business? If people know who you are and people know you're doing a good job and another job, then people should just let you do business. They shouldn't have to run through all this government central committee just to run a business and to have it under government scrutiny. Because is that a really true free market at that point? I really don't think so. And another thing about government justice is always hypocritical. They always have rules for everyone else, and they don't get the everyone else, and they don't follow the rules they set for everyone else. And is that real justice when they can just bully us while they can just sit behind closed doors and completely ignore, for example, social distancing restrictions? I mean, we've seen it. We've seen these politicians who basically go out into public restaurants or reservation as restaurants completely against the guidelines that they set. These people are completely dishonest, and why would you ever trust them with justice? What makes you think they even care about justice? And that's my take.
Yeah, my understanding of the idea of justice under statism is that, well, you said it earlier, you have a whole bunch of people who cannot be logically claimed to have actually done anything wrong, being thrown into rape cages just simply because they ran afoul of some arbitrary government edict. You have all sorts of rules and restrictions that are applied entirely arbitrarily on the basis of helping some legislator or bureaucrat feeling nice and warm and fuzzy inside about all of the good work that they're doing, regardless of whether or not they're even justified in imposing these rules and imposing their ideas of morality onto people from the top down in the first place. But And of course, you also pointed out, accurately, I would add, that there is a very strong double standard. That if you or I did exactly what the state does, which is, of course, declare war, steal from people, and any number of things, throwing people into prisons for arbitrary reasons, they would throw us into prison. And although, of course, I have a problem with the idea of punitive justice in a nutshell, I only have a problem with the idea of punitive justice, which is probably for an entirely different conversation, at least they would be somewhat justified in doing so. But the important part, at least in my mind, is that the system is working, that is doing all of that, is working exactly as intended. Should I go on, or did you have anything, or did you want to reply
Faith
to
just
that?
popped in. How's it going?
Oh, hi.
Oh,
I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to be here for this to hear what you were going to say.
Sup, fellow white nigga.
Do you really want to say that on a stream, though?
He already said he's not monetized.
Well, it's not a question of monetize. It's going to get, like, killed.
Oh, I guess that's a good point, yeah.
We're
My
what,
bad.
killed?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
we're
not killed, but
individually
we
are not
shut
going to
down,
die, but, you know, the stream will commit spontaneous existence failure because of YouTube. So,
Since I have the chance here, I did want to ask both you and Night Watchman, since some of the topics that were mentioned in the video came up, what do you guys think of Larkin Rose's video on anarchy?
Larkin Rose?
Well, specifically the speech that he made. A message to the voting cattle was what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I saw that one.
Dusk. Could
That
you
was like one
just
of the
link
first
it real
videos I
quick
saw from him. It was
on
epic.
the side?
If I link it to you guys want to watch it on stream for the viewers, or
Sure, we could do a watch together.
I mean, we could. I mean, I already seen it like multiple times.
all right, I'll link you guys in just a second.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Zombies.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
All right, I posted it in the meme. Wait,
Yeah.
probably I'm not going to
I don't
post it
really
in
need
the
to
meme.
watch it again because I already seen it like multiple times. And I know everything about it.
There,
It's really
I
good.
posted it in the general chat for the voice channel. It's an awesome video, in my opinion.
Although, doesn't it use stock music?
All right. Everyone synchronize their watches. We're going to watch it at the same time.
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm just trying to do something. That's the
That's because I know the video by heart.
Will we be able to hear it through your microphone, or should we all synchronize watch it?
We should all just synchronize our watches and just watch it here because
which one's the libertarian YouTuber who tried to run for president of the Libertarian Party again?
Adam Kokesh?
Yeah, for some reason I keep getting Larkin Rose and Adam Kokesh mixed up.
They had a
Which is
debate.
why I asked.
You did it in a live stream not too long ago.
I know, that's why I wanted to double check.
They debated each other, and it was kind of hilarious because the way it was a good comparison between a anarchist and somebody who's pretending to be an anarchist, because everything Kokesh was doing was political speak, basically. He was just fluffing his responses to Larkin Rose's statements about how running for president is contradictory to voluntarist ideals.
And naturally, he's going to try to do everything he can to justify making attempts at a conclusion that are completely divorced from the means that he is using, namely the presidential office.
Yeah, exactly. If you're interested in seeing that video, I can send it to you for later.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
So anyways, is there a watch together link?
hang on, I'll need to set the watch together up.
I was just going to say that the Libertarian Party blew their best opportunity of surpassing that little 5% that they always want, with Vermin Supreme not getting the vote for them.
Yeah, like seriously, why was Joe Jorgensen the leader of it?
From what I recall happened, They have their own little primary process. Joe Jorgensen didn't even show up as a blip on the radar in that primary, and then she just ends up becoming the nominee because reasons.
Yeah, like she's
Yeah, the
not
higher
even
that run the
good.
Libertarian Party thought that they would be able to appeal to people who were literally just voting for Hillary because she was a woman and try to beat people at their own identity politics.
Basically,
Yeah,
it
it
seems
clearly
that
didn't do them any good.
I mean, I made some pretty harsh criticisms about the Libertarian Party in the past, and I can go over many of them here if you'd wish. But just from a purely political understanding, the maneuvers that the Libertarian Party have been making are absolutely retarded.
They take themselves way too seriously.
And sometimes they don't even take themselves seriously enough, where they have the opposite problem. They really have no idea what the hell they're doing. And they're doing everything they can to try to make sure that the least libertarian person possible ends up being who they run for president of the United States. And it's an absolute embarrassment. I mean, who was the guy who was running as the Libertarian vice presidential candidate last cycle in 2016? Bill Weld.
Yeah.
That guy is a neocon.
Yeah.
That's actually what I was going to point out, is that all of the people they've had running are, if we were to take the dichotomy seriously, would just be Democrats and Republicans. Of course,
Spike
we all know
Cohen
how we
wasn't.
feel about
Are we
the
counting?
left-right
Are we counting
dichotomy.
vice presidents? The vice presidential nominees, are we counting them?
I don't know.
Spike
Actually,
Cohen.
what would have been the vice president of Joe Jorgensen?
Spike Cohen. He was actually Vermin Supreme's running mate until Vermin Supreme lost the bid for the candidacy for the Libertarian Party. But there's a separate thing for the running mate for the Libertarians, and he actually won it. He wasn't that bad. I almost got an interview set up for the back alley with him, but it didn't end up going through.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But that would have been pretty juicy, to say the least.
Yeah. You know, I might be able to set something else up now that it's all over and everyone's got more time to do stuff. Even the post-election stuff has started to calm down, so we could maybe set something else up again.
Possibly. Hopefully not in the too recent, because this
All
week
right,
is going to get
I'll
very
send you
hectic
guys
for
to
me.
watch together link.
Yeah.
Link?
Yeah, where's the link?
There we go.
All right. While we're all filtering into that, what are the chances of more debates on the back alley channel?
I'm sorry?
I was thinking that it might be interesting if you guys had a debate with an Eye for Capitalism, because he was disputing some of your criticisms of Hoppe. Like, none of them were like serious criticisms of it, because they were addressed in the video or had jack shit to do with the video. But I think it'd be fun to have him on.
I mean, is anyone in contact with him?
He was in the comments section. I don't imagine he'd be that difficult to get a hold of.
The only problem is I don't know how to just have the video isolated and watch together. I have to actually just capture the whole window. I don't know how to really fix that. I don't know how to do what you do, Heretic, in which it's just the screen, which is just the video itself and nothing else. But this is kind of the best I can do right now, so let's just watch it.
Well, usually, if you hold down either the Control or the Alt key, you should be able to crop the window. I can't remember which one it is because usually it's just like I do trial and error. It doesn't really hurt. Whoa. That was
Sorry, I clicked it. It had a circle that was spinning around, and it was like, "What is that about?" So.
Oh, there we go. I
Started.
didn't even know you can crop. Thanks, Heretic.
You're welcome. And you should also don't forget to scale up the window so that
know,
people
I'm
on the
scaling
stream
it up.
can see it.
All right, let's
Yay,
give it a
learn
watch.
something new.
You cannot begin to imagine in how many ways the world is the opposite of what you have been taught to believe. You see the guy who sells drugs to willing customers so he can feed his family as the scum of the earth, while you see the hypocrite who gives away stolen money in the name of government as a saint. You see the guy who tries to avoid being robbed by the federal thugs as a crook and a tax cheat, but see as virtuous the politician who gives away the same stolen loot to people to whom it does not belong. You see the cop as a good guy when he drags a man away from his friends and family and throws him in prison for 10 years for smoking a leaf. And you see anyone who defends himself from such barbaric fascism as the lowest form of life, a cop killer. In reality, most drug dealers are more virtuous than any government social worker, and prostitutes have far less to be ashamed of than political whores, because they trade only with what is rightfully theirs, and only with those who want to trade with them. The upstanding, church-going, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen who votes Democrat or Republican is far more despicable and a bigger threat to humanity than the most promiscuous, lazy, drug-snorting hippie. Why? Because the hippie is willing to let others be free, and the voter is not. The damage done to society by bad habits and loose morality is nothing compared to the damage done to society by the self-righteous violence committed in the name of the state. You imagine yourselves to be charitable and tolerant when you are nothing of the sort. Even the Nazis had table manners and proper etiquette when they weren't killing people. You think you're good people because you say please and thank you? You think sitting in that big building on Sunday makes you noble and righteous? The difference between you and a common thief is that the thief has the honesty to commit the crime himself, while you whine for government to do your stealing for you. The difference between you and the street thug is that the thug is open about the violence he commits, while you let others forcibly control your neighbors on your behalf. You advocate theft, harassment, assault, and even murder, but accept no responsibility for doing so. You old folks want the government to steal from your kids so you can get your monthly check. You parents want all your neighbors to be robbed to pay for your kids' schooling. You all vote for whichever crook promises to steal money from other people to pay for what you want. You demand that those people who engage in behaviors you don't approve of be dragged off and locked up, but feel no guilt for the countless lives your whims have destroyed. You even call the government thugs your representatives, and yet you never take responsibility for the evil they commit. You proudly support the troops as they kill whomever the liars in DC tell them to kill, and you feel good about it. You call yourselves Christians or Jews or claim to follow some other religion, but the truth is what you call your religion is empty window dressing. What you truly worship, the God you really bow to, what you really believe in is the state. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, unless you can do it by way of government. Then it's just fine, isn't it? If you call it taxation and war, it stops being a sin, right? After all, it was only your God that said you shouldn't steal and murder, but the state said it was okay. It's pretty obvious which one outranks the other in your minds. Despite all the churches, synagogues, and mosques we see around us, This nation has one God and only one God, and that God is called government. Jesus taught nonviolence and told you to love your neighbor, but the state encourages you to vote for people who will use the violence of government to butt into every aspect of everyone else's life. Which do you believe? To those about to stone a woman who had committed adultery, Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." But the state says it's perfectly fine to lock someone up if they do something you find distasteful, such as prostitution. Which do you believe? The Christian God says, "Thou shalt not covet," but coveting is the lifeblood of the beast that is the state. You are taught to resent, despise, and hate anyone who has anything you don't have. You clamor for the state to tear other people down, steal their property, and give it to you. And you call that fairness. The Bible calls it coveting and stealing. You are not Christians. You are not Jews. You are not Muslims. And you certainly aren't atheists. You all have the same God, and its name is government. You're all members of the most evil, insane, destructive cult in history. If there ever was a devil, the state is it, and you worship it with all your heart and soul. You pray to it to solve every problem, to satisfy all your needs, to smite your enemies, and to shower its blessings upon you. You worship what Nietzsche called the coldest of all cold monsters, and you hate those of us who don't. To you, the greatest sin is disobeying your God, breaking the law, you call it, as if anyone could possibly have any moral obligation to obey the arbitrary commands and demands of the corrupt, lying, delusional megalomaniacs who infest this despicable town. Even your ministers, priests, and rabbis, more often than not, are traitors to their own religions, teaching that the commands of human authority should supersede adherence to the laws of the gods they say they believe in. Several years ago, I heard one pompous evangelical jackass in particular pontificating on the radio that anyone who disobeys the civil authority, be it a king or any other government, is engaging in rebellion against God. Those were the exact words he used. What if the government is doing something wrong? Well, this salesman for Satan opined, that is the business of those in government, and you are still obligated to obey. Everywhere you turn, be it the state or the church, the media or the schools, you are taught one thing above all else: the virtue of subjugating yourselves to mortals who claim to have the right to rule you. It is sickening the reverence with which you speak of the liars and thieves whose feet are so firmly planted on your necks. You call the congressmen and the judges honorable, and you swoon at the magnificence of the grandiose halls they inhabit, the temples they built to celebrate the domination of mankind. You feel pride at being able to say you once shook a senator's hand or saw the president in person. Ah, yes, the grand deity himself, His Royal Highness, the President of the United States of America. You speak the title as if you're referring to God Almighty. The vocabulary has changed a bit, but your mindset is no different from that of the groveling peasants of old who bowed low, faces in the dirt, with a feeling of unworthiness and humility when in the presence of whatever narcissist had declared himself to be their rightful lord and master. The truth of the matter, back then and today, is that these parasites who call themselves leaders are not superior beings. They are not great men and women. They are not honorable. They're not even average. The people who earn an honest living, from sophisticated millionaire entrepreneurs to illiterate day laborers doing the most menial tasks you can imagine, those people deserve your respect. Those people you should treat with courtesy and civility. But the frauds who claim the right to rule you and demand your subservience and obedience, they deserve only your scorn and contempt. Those who seek so-called high office are the lowest of the low. They may dress better, have larger vocabularies, and do a better job of planning out and executing their schemes, but they are no better than pickpockets, muggers, and carjackers. In fact, they are worse, because they don't want to rob you of just your possessions. They want to rob you of your very humanity, deprive you of your free will, by slowly leeching away your ability to think, to judge, to act, reducing you to slaves in both body and mind. And still you persist in calling them leaders. Leaders? Where is it that you think you're going exactly that would require you to have a leader? If you just live your own life and mind your own damn business, exercising your own talents, pursuing your own dreams, striving to be what you believe you should be, what possible use would you have for a leader? Do you ever actually think about the words that you hear, the words that you repeat? You parrot oxymoronic terms such as the leader of the free world, even pretending for a moment that there is some huge journey or some giant battle that everyone in the entire nation is undertaking together that would require a leader. Why would you ever think, even for a moment, that the crooks that infest this town are the sort of people you should listen to or emulate or follow anywhere? Somewhere inside your mostly dormant brains, you know full well that politicians are all corrupt liars and thieves, opportunistic con men, exploiters, and fearmongers. You know all this, and yet you still speak as if you are the ones who are the stupid, vicious animals, while the politicians are the great, wise role models, teachers, and leaders without whom civilization could not exist. You think these crooks are the ones who make civilization possible? What belief could be more absurd? Yet when they do their pseudo-religious rituals, deciding how to control you this week, you still call it law, and continue to treat their arbitrary demands as if they were moral decrees from the gods that no decent person would ever consider disobeying. You have become so thoroughly indoctrinated into the cult of state worship that you are truly shocked when the occasional sane person states the bleeding obvious. The mere fact that the political crooks wrote something down and declared their threats to be law does not mean that any human being anywhere has the slightest moral obligation to obey. Every moment of every day, in every location and every situation, you have a moral obligation to do what you deem to be right, not what some delusional bloated windbag says is legal. And that requires you to first determine right and wrong for yourself, a responsibility you spend much time and effort trying to dodge. You proclaim how proud you are to be law-abiding citizens and express your utter contempt for anyone who considers himself above your so-called laws. Laws that are nothing more than the selfish whims of tyrants and thieves. The word crime once meant an act harmful to another person. Now it means disobedience to any one of the myriad of arbitrary commands coming from a parasitical criminal class. To you, the term crime is nearly synonymous with the word sin, implying that the ones whose commands are being disobeyed must be something akin to gods, when in truth they are more akin to leeches. The very phrase, taking the law into your own hands, perfectly expresses what a sacrilege it is in your eyes for a mere human being to take upon himself the responsibility to judge right from wrong and to act accordingly, instead of doing what you do, unthinkingly obeying whatever capricious commands this cesspool of maggots spews forth. You glorify this criminal class as lawmakers and believe that no one is lower than a lawbreaker, someone who would dare disobey the politicians. Likewise, you speak with pious reverence of law enforcers, those who forcibly impose the politicians' every whim upon the rest of us. When the state uses violence, you imagine it to be inherently righteous and just, and if anyone resists, they are, in your eyes, contemptible lowlifes, lawless terrorist criminals. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who helped slaves escape the plantations. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who helped Jews escape the killing machine of the Third Reich. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who were crushed to death under the tanks of the Red Chinese government in Tiananmen Square. Like all the lawless terrorist criminals in history who had the courage to disobey the never-ending stream of tyrants and oppressors who have called their violence authority and law. And that includes the lawless terrorist criminals who founded this country. Everything you think you know is upside down, backwards, and inside out. But what has to take the cake, the height of your insanity, is the fact that you view as violent terrorists the only people on the planet who oppose the initiation of violence against their fellow men. Anarchists, voluntarists, and libertarians. We use violence only to defend ourselves against someone who initiates violence against us. We use it for nothing else. Meanwhile, your belief system is completely schizophrenic and self-contradictory. On the one hand, you teach the young slaves that violence is never the answer. Yet out of the other side of your mouths, you advocate that everyone and everything, everywhere and at all times be controlled, monitored, taxed, and regulated through the force of government. In short, you are teaching your children that the masters may use violence whenever they please, but the slave should never resist. You indoctrinate your children into a life of unthinking, helpless subservience. You are putting the chains around their little necks and fastening the locks tight. And worst of all, you feel good about it. Out of one side of your mouths, you condemn the evils of fascism and socialism and lament the injustices of the regimes of Hitler, Stalin, and Mao. While out of the other side of your mouths, you preach exactly what they did. The worship of the collective, the subjugation of every individual to that evil insanity that wears the deceptive label, the common good. You babble on and on about diversity and open-mindedness, and then beg your masters to regulate and control every aspect of everyone's lives, creating a giant herd of unthinking conformist drones. You wear different clothes and have different hairstyles, and you think that makes you different. Yet all your minds are enslaved to the same club of masters and controllers. You think what they tell you to think and do what they tell you to do while imagining yourselves to be progressive, thinking, and enlightened. From your position of relative comfort and safety, you now condemn the evils of other lands and other times while turning a blind eye to the injustices happening right in front of you. You tell yourself that had you lived in those other places, in those other times, you would have been among those who stood up against oppression and defended the downtrodden. But that is a lie. You would have been right there with the rest of the flock of well-trained sheep, loudly demanding that the slaves be beaten, that the witches be burned, that the nonconformists and rebels be destroyed. How do I know this? Because that is exactly what you are doing today. Today's injustices and oppressions are fashionable and popular, and those who resist them, you tell yourselves, are just malcontents and freaks, people whose rights don't matter, people who deserve to be crushed under the boot of authority. Isn't that right? You bunch of spineless, unthinking hypocrites, look in the mirror. Take a good look at what you imagine to be righteous and kind. You are the devil's plaything. The crowds of thousands wildly applauding the speeches of Adolf Hitler, that was you. The mob demanding that Jesus Christ be nailed to the cross, that was you. The white invaders who celebrated the wholesale slaughter of those godless redskins, that was you. The throngs filling the Colosseum, applauding as the Christians were fed to the lions, that was you. Throughout history, the perpetual suffering and injustice occurring on an incomprehensible scale, it was all because of people just like you. The well-trained, thoroughly indoctrinated conformists, the people who do as they're told, who proudly bow to their masters, who follow the crowd, believing what everyone else believes and thinking whatever authority tells them to think. That is you. And your ignorance is not because the truth is not available to you. There have been radicals preaching it for thousands of years. No, you are ignorant because you shun the truth with all your heart and soul. You close your eyes and run away when a hint of reality lands in front of you. You condemn as extremists and fringe kooks those who try to show you the chains you wear, because you don't want to be free. You don't even want to be human. Responsibility and reality scare the hell out of you, so you cling tightly to your own enslavement and lash out at any who seek to free you from it. When someone opens the door to your cage, you cower back in the corner and yell, "Close it, close it." Well, some of us are finished with trying to save you. We've wasted enough effort trying to convince you that you should be free. All you ever do is spout back what your masters have taught you, that being free only leads to chaos and destruction, while being obedient and subservient leads to peace and prosperity. There are none so blind as those who will not see. And you nation of sheep, would rather die than see the truth.
Wow. Now that was a good speech.
I thought it was pretty awesome, yeah. What do you think, Lord Filth?
I liked it.
Just
That was the video that Mr. Fapperton said made him an anarchist.
They didn't.
Well, no, but he said it did.
He says it did, but I think
we all know
all of us know
Dapperton's
the
not
truth.
a true anarchist. He's
Yep.
a Hoppian at best.
No, he's not even a Hoppian. He's not At least Hoppians have some knowledge. Mr. Dapperton hasn't even read an essay, and he's told me so himself on multiple occasions. And I think he even said so in a video that he has never read any anarchist literature in his entire life.
Yet he sent anarchist literature to someone. I don't remember who. He gave it as a gift or something. So
Yeah.
he was giving people literature he hasn't read.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm assuming you've read at least one book or essay on anarchism, Night Watchman?
I'm not too deep on the theory, but I completely understand the core ideas behind it. Why?
But do you read?
That's a no then. That's fine. It's not an accusation, or it's not really. This is an easily solvable problem. All we have to do is just send you the audiobook of No Trees in the Constitution of No Authority by Lysander
That's the one I was going to
Spooner.
recommend. Yes.
And just listen to that. Audiobooks do count in terms of reading, by the way. And as soon as you finish that, you'll be more well-read than Mr. Dapperton.
Yay! That's good to hear,
Let's
because
see.
I don't want to end up like a Dapperton clone.
I mean, I'm not suggesting we put it on the Watch Together link, but, after the stream is
We'll be
over...
here,
Oh,
we'll be
God,
here
that'd
for
be
2
long.
hours.
It's like, I don't think it's that long. I think it's like
It's an hour and 50 minutes or something.
Yeah, that's not long.
It would be.
It's like a
Watch
movie's
Together
length.
stream.
It's not long, but it'd be a little long for a stream.
It'd be very long for a stream, but yeah, that's something you can have playing in the background while you're playing. I don't know, some
Call
relaxing
of
game
Duty.
like Minecraft. Not Call of Duty. That's would not be appropriate.
I was trying to pick something mainstream so that it'd sound silly.
Minecraft's quite mainstream already.
Mhm.
There, I put it in videos for you.
Alright, that's cool.
Like, not to watch now, but, to watch at your convenience.
Let me see here. Did you send it or?
He
I put it in videos.
yeah.
It's a locked channel. Oh, I didn't realize that you didn't have the role. I'll just go ahead and put it in general chat too. Why not? It's worth posting twice.
Right.
All right,
There.
let me see.
It's in general also.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, so just on your own time, it's worth listening to because Lysander Spooner is pretty solid, except on a few things. His take on intellectual property is pretty cursed.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of intellectual property, this one's also worth listening to. 1 second.
It's another 20-minute video.
No, we're not going to watch that on launch together. I don't recommend watching that on stream unless you're like doing a meme stream. I think Lord Filth is probably going to recognize this.
Right.
There.
Kinsella versus Wenzel IP debate.
Yes.
Oh god, that video. I remember that one. Oh.
They spent like 20 minutes discussing the names that he called Wenzel, and Wenzel's yelling at him over it.
No, not 20 minutes. It's like the entire debate. Kinsella, like I don't like Kinsella at all because he's a Hoppian.
Yeah.
But he's at least good on intellectual property, and his absolute just dismantling of Wenzel's inability to make any kind of argument whatsoever, and Wenzel just trying way too hard to sound like he's from Brooklyn. It's kind of hilarious.
It is. This is basically internet blood sports, but with people in suits.
Honestly, internet blood sports but with people in suits is the most entertaining.
It is. I agree. This is probably one of my favorite debates that doesn't have anybody in the back alley in it. Especially since it's like just two Hoppians yelling at each other. It's freaking stupid.
Is Wenzel a Hoppian? I actually don't know.
If he's anything, he's a Hoppian. I might be giving him too much credit. He claims to be an anarchist, though. Or, no, he didn't use the word anarchist. He claims to be a libertarian of some kind.
I'm looking him up right now. Freaking hell. He's the editor and publisher of economicpolicyjournal.com and of Target Liberty. I'm not familiar with either of those.
Me
He
neither.
discusses issues related to free markets, liberty, and private property society theory. That's a little eyebrow raising. Wenzel does not expect to see a private property society develop in his lifetime, but he loves the intellectual battle involved in promoting it and smashing of statists. He considers the writings of Ludwig von Mises, Friedrich Hayek, Murray Rothbard, Henry Hazlitt, and Harry Brown as the most important influences on his writing. A frequent guest on radio talk shows, he has been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Forbes, Bloomberg, Zero Hedge, LouRockwell.com, at CNBC, and many other media outlets. So he doesn't seem like a Hoppian, but he's at the very least a vulgar boy.
He did try to quote Hoppe during the debate. That's why I was suspecting that he was a Hoppian.
I mean, that's vulgar libertarians will do that too, because their understanding of libertarianism basically goes as far as, oh, he says he's an anarchist, so he must be an anarchist, without any understanding of anarchist principles, what anarchism entails. And, if you haven't really studied Hoppe all that much, it would be very easy, at least in the libertarian mainstream, to have at least a favorable opinion of Hoppe.
Yeah. So, watch Night Watchman. Whenever you get the chance, I recommend watching that. Maybe in the background, because there's not actually anything to see on the video itself. It's just audio. It's really fun. Esso loved it too.
Okay.
Oh god, it was freaking hilarious.
Yes.
Like there was just I was actually having a play in the background of like I think I was playing a I remember specifically I was playing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon ROM. I was having this play in the background and I had to stop the emulator because I was just laughing so hard. which is something that actually never happens. Well, almost never happens.
Wenzel just sounds like such a goofball. And Kinsella, and whenever he's in a debate, does absolutely everything he can to piss everybody off. It's funny as hell. Have you seen his debate with what was that guy's name? That one guy that nobody should take seriously and tries to debate everybody, but sets up
Joshua.
rules. No, not Joshua. I tried to set up a debate.
Omnizoa?
No, he's not somebody who goes by a username. Like, he goes by his actual name online.
Ben Shapiro.
No. God. He has a YouTube channel.
Ben Shapiro?
He has a
Sounds
YouTube
like Ben
channel?
Shapiro, man.
Yes. Of course he does.
Well, I tried to set up a debate between Esso and him at some point, but Esso never got back to me on it.
Did Ben Shapiro get back to you on that?
Unfortunately, no. That would have been funny.
Okay.
Though.
Well,
A Ben
Esso
Shapiro
should debate a
versus
Jew at some
Filthy and
point.
Eso debate would be kick ass.
Would it? Because all the guy does is go ahead.
I mean, we
That's
kind of
what-
agree on we agree on most things except for like a few, except for religion.
Right.
And even then, like, I'm not sure I'm in a position to be able to debate religion, so I don't think there's going to be much of a debate on that. The only time we ever debated was a disagreement on the nature of the four turnings theory, where he thought it was historicism, and even he's come around to understanding that the four turnings theory is just an observation about patterns in history.
didn't you debate Star Wars once?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm misremembering that.
What would be the point of that?
I don't know. It's like one of the usual nerd discussions about what this means, what that means, who in Dragon Ball has a higher power level, that kind of thing.
Right.
Vegeta, what
The
does
real
the
important
scavenger say
life.
about his power level?
Yes.
Oh, the ocean dub.
Ugh.
Oh man.
We're going to pretend that the ocean dub didn't happen, and then we're going to remember that there is actually an even worse dub.
The big green dub?
There's one even worse than that.
Wait, ocean dub of what?
Dragon Ball Z.
Okay, I was just
in
verifying
its
that we were
first-
talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, in its first release, I think it was like in the late 80s or maybe early 90s. I don't quite remember. Dragon Ball was dubbed, and although people tend to like the ocean dub for the first season, in subsequent seasons it kind of deteriorated in quality. And then when there was a re-release of the anime and a new dub, this is the Funimation dub, and that's the one everyone is most familiar with because it aired in the late 90s and early 2000s on Toonami. And basically all those voice actors have been doing the English dub for Dragon Ball ever since. But there are other dubs of Dragon Ball that are a lot less well known, including the Big Green dub, as mentioned earlier, which is just notoriously terrible. And there's one that's actually even worse, called the Boys and Girls Club dub. It's hard to find. It's hard to find nowadays because it's very obscure. But if you can find clips of it, it's absolutely hilarious because it is unimaginably bad.
I was not
I
familiar with
am
that
the
one.
king
I
of the
only,
Saya
had heard of-
people!
Oh my god. Oh, also the guy's name was Jan Hellfield.
Who?
John Hellfield. That guy.
I've never heard of them.
He had a debate with Kinsella, and basically Kinsella only showed up so that he could throw out all of the guy's arbitrary rules. Here, I'll link
I've never
the
heard of
video
him.
if you're interested.
I'm not actually sure. Why not?
There, it's in general. That was a weird link. That must be a clip. A clipped link.
Well, I'm trying to open it now. It's kind of being
Google
slow.
Plus, cringe.
What?
They're doing a voice video call through Google Plus.
Oh yeah, they did it on Google Plus. Yeah,
Remember when that was a thing?
Tried to force it down
I'm
our
impressed
throats.
that it's an hour and a half.
There we go. Yeah, it's working. Apparently the top comment is yours, Pumpkin.
Yes, it is.
Asking if he would want to debate us.
Yep. I actually managed to mostly set it up, and then Ball was in Esso's court, and he just stopped replying to me. I guess he lost interest in the idea.
You just got to keep bringing stuff up to him.
I did for like 3 weeks.
Did he block you?
No.
Oh, you didn't try hard enough.
I just figured he wasn't interested, so I wasn't going to keep pushing it. It would have been fun, though. I mean, it was only 10 months ago. If you want to pick up from there, Lord Filth, that might be fun.
I'm sorry?
If you want to pick up from where I left off, it was only 10 months ago. So if you want to have a debate with him, be my guest. It'd be fun.
I'll have to watch the debate first and see if it's even worth it. Because if we're just going to spend 30 minutes debating on the definition of government, then I'm not interested.
What did Esso call that? Dictionarianism or something?
I don't know.
Isn't that what
It's like when the
does?
debate just becomes about the dictionary definitions of things, and everyone's picking their own dictionary.
Yeah, pretty much, and
Yep.
that's why I prefer not. That's why I find the semantics argument just so unimaginably just unpleasant. And I'm pretty sure you could tell from that Omnizoa debate that after the 30-minute mark, I basically just clocked out.
Well, yeah, talking about definitions is just bottom tier debate.
Speaking of definitions, why do you hate Wikipedia so much, Filthy?
I didn't say I hated Wikipedia.
Okay, well, I think I remember you saying earlier before that you didn't like using it as a source.
Well, largely because the information on Wikipedia is subject to a large amount of revision by editors and administrators. Not to mention that you're pretty much setting yourself up for cherry picking in terms of the amount of information that goes on there. And perhaps the most infamous, a good example I can think of is, well, there's two examples. I think it was 2014 that the article on gender dimorphism in humans was edited to say that the 50% difference in upper body strength in women is because of social norms, and if we just had social norms that encouraged women to increase their upper body strength, then they would be as strong as men. There's screenshots of it. I don't have any on hand because I usually don't say that stuff, and because this is a completely different computer than the one I was using in 2014, so of course I wouldn't have that. And another one would be in Austrian economics. There's an excerpt about its theory on markets, I believe, and at the end it says something along the lines of, if this is true, then this completely invalidates the entire field of macroeconomics.
Yeah, well, anyway,
what's true?
Just
if the Austrian business cycle theory and Austrian observations about markets are accurate and their methodology is accurate, then it would invalidate the entire theory of macroeconomics, which is true, of course. It's absolutely true, but it's kind of funny how the editors and the administrators put that forward as though that's a bad thing.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
Well,
Which
it depends on the tone you read it in, actually, really.
Possibly. However, my thinking is that, well, good. I mean, you know that macroeconomics is a field that was invented entirely by John Maynard Keynes, specifically to try to validate his ideas.
That makes way too much sense.
The whole point of macroeconomics is to examine the economy through a kind of prescriptive top-down lens, and to examine which policies have which effects and how we can determine what the best policy is mathematically. Of course, once you realize that there is no such thing as the economy, and in fact any society is going to have hundreds, thousands, even millions of little different economies, then you're going to understand that the field of macroeconomics makes no fucking sense whatsoever. More importantly, that economics is a spontaneous phenomenon of people exchanging their own specialities and scarce resources. That's not something you can prescribe from the top down.
Yeah. You still there, Night
anyways,
Watchman?
I almost
Yeah, this
saying
is your stream
before
after all.
Filthy went off on a tangent there. I was going to say that yes, well, even though I am a voluntarist, like you said, Heretic, I still have a lot of questions, and I really thank you, Dust Kitty, for sharing the theory with me, because it might answer a lot of the questions I have, like how we're going to make this reality. Should we use what should we use? Like, how would agorism work, etc., etc. You know, I'm still in the shallow end right now, but you know, I really need to get deeper into the theory if I'm going to start forming more cohesive arguments.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. So let's just take these questions one at a time, and unfortunately I'm going to have to go soon.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I can at least answer one or two questions.
Okay, well, I just, it's just like,
Did you misplace your notepad or something?
I keep all my notes in my head. I'm just trying to think here.
Well, I recall you asked earlier about how we will achieve anarchism.
I
think the best
did try. Yeah, I'm kind of going to ask, but I don't know why I'm afraid to ask for some reason, but I'm going to ask. How are we going to realistically achieve voluntary society, Heretic? Because that's something I'm concerned about.
Well, in order to answer that question, we have to work backwards and figure out why it is that states form in the first place. We know that the Hobbesian hypothesis, which is one that is particularly popular among minarchists, is that the state is natural and that people want the state to protect us from the state of nature, which is generally assumed to be a state of constant war as people fight against one another. But just praxeologically, we can observe that that's absolute nonsense, because, as I'm sure you imagine, a state of constant war would not be in people's individual self-interest. So with this in mind, we can reasonably assume that since people have self-preservation, they don't want to, and can reasonably assume that a person in a state of nature can assume that a person that they're trying to attack would attempt to defend themselves, and if they attempt to defend themselves, there's a reasonable chance that they would be killed. So, not knowing that they wouldn't want to be killed, they would act in ways not to provoke the other person to kill them. From this, we can reasonably assume that people would would operate not just on the basis of self-preservation, but self-actualization. And by self-actualization, I don't mean like answering existential questions. I mean enriching themselves. So the better term would be self-enrichment. With this in mind, they would try to see what the people that they're networked have, what resources they have, and and of course, the people who have those resources aren't going to give them away for free. They're going to want something else. And this is going to be the basis of very primitive bartering and trading systems. And we know that these systems existed for quite a long time before the first governments even formed, with very complex intercontinental trade routes going back before even Homo sapiens evolved. With this in mind, it doesn't make any sense that the state would form naturally, since any person who claimed to have arbitrary rule over other people would just simply be killed, as other people would just defend themselves against them, and they would be justified in doing so. What changed is that as agricultural societies started to be formed, you started to get savings. And with savings, you had resources that made plunder actually profitable for the first time in history. But of course, it wouldn't be so easy to go in and take those resources by force. No, you have to coerce people into accepting your rules legitimate. And the way that happened at first was that around the Middle Eastern areas, which would be Babylonia, Assyria, those very early empires, a lot of agriculture was based around like water basins, which were fed by rivers. What the first governments did was they went upstream, they dammed the river, and then gave themselves a monopoly on that resource and used that monopoly to coerce the farmers downstream to obey their edicts, or otherwise they would starve to death. And that's the basis for the first government. So the real thing that people need to be looking out for is how profitable violence is in those particular modes of production. In pre-agrarian societies, wasn't profitable at all because people hardly had any savings whatsoever. In agrarian societies, people started to have savings, and so it actually did start to be profitable. In feudal times, and especially in industrial times, people had a lot of savings, and it became very profitable to run a government. However, what's changing now is that we're moving past the industrial age into the information age. And what this entails is that there will be new forms of trade and new forms of financial exchange that are going to take place in ways that are significantly more costly for the government to tax, to regulate, and to even observe than whatever resources they would hope to gain through fines, through fees, through taxes, through all sorts of things. So what's happened is that there's been a complete inversion in terms of the profitability of violence from the industrial age all the way to the information age. And what this means is that, well, this answers your question. How do we achieve a voluntary society, if not in our lifetimes, then at some point in the future? Well, it's simple. We create, or at the very least, help facilitate the development of new technology that makes the state makes statism, and the organization of states impossible.
And for that
Does
reason,
that
I'm
make
really
sense?
looking forward to FNet.
Yes. Fortunately, that should be done shortly.
But it's important to also remember that this is just a strategy. This isn't necessarily a prophecy telling the future.
Of course. This is just a there's no such thing as prophecy. There's only speculation on the basis of information that currently exists. This
Right.
observation was first made in 1996,
Mhm.
and the extent to which it is proven accurate has been outright frightening. I mean, it's very good and it's very hopeful. However, the authors couldn't conceive of social organization outside of state rules, so they still believe states would exist. And on that aspect, I'm going to disagree with them. But yeah, that's how the state ceases to exist. The profitability of violence stops, and even without this technology, the profitability of violence over a long enough time horizon does start to diminish as population and economic sophistication increases, because as population expands linearly, the cost of the government expands exponentially through bureaucratization and other problems that it's necessarily going to incur, such as the diseconomies of scale. This is also the case with economic sophistication. As economies grow linearly, their costs are going to increase exponentially. As such, that's been the primary, and that mechanism has been the primary driver of transition from certain political economies to other political economies. For example, from feudalism to mercantilism to modern liberalism. It's not because people hold different ideas. It's because certain forms of economic organization simply are not profitable anymore.
You got another question, Night Watchman?
Well, another question is, how does this affect my life right now for the time being?
How this affects your life right now? Well, what you do is you figure out ways to move your assets, or you alter your behavior, and you alter your own personal assets and your own economic presence in preparation for the new implications of the information age. That sounds very complicated, but really all that boils down to is buy crypto.
Okay, it's just a lot to really take in, and I'm trying to just think about all the possibilities here.
Were you more asking about the social aspect of it?
What?
The way I interpreted your question was that you were sort of asking, how am I supposed to sort of interact in this world where these views are a minority? Am I wrong in looking into it that deeply, or is that sort of what you meant?
Like, I am kind of afraid that it might alienate me, but if it's for the right cause, then it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying you have to martyr yourself in the name of anarchism. Of course not.
I wasn't going that far.
Means,
It's just
avoid.
I don't want to drive schisms between my relatives. That's all. So I guess I won't tell them for now, but I can still explain to them certain ideals. But I just wouldn't come up to them and say, "Hey, Mom, I'm an anarchist now."
Depending on the situation, that might be a good idea to just, as painful as it sometimes is, just to sort of keep it to yourself around certain people. If it's going to mess up your, if you have a good relationship with them, and this specific issue would alienate you from that good relationship. But you also got to question whether or not that relationship was worth having if simply expressing these views is enough to make them think you're crazy or something.
I mean, I have a very simple thing. I have a simple rule in regards to figuring out whether or not to tell people things, and that is, do they need to know?
Yeah, that's a good way to live.
If no, then don't. If they do, then ask the question, why do they need to know? And there are many times in which there are good reasons to tell people things.
I think it's best to keep it on a need-to-know basis, because if our entire ideology is basically about the abolishment of the state, then definitely there are going to be certain agents of the state that are going to try and subvert us and get us killed.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking you were talking about on that kind of scale. I thought you were more talking about on a personal level.
I wouldn't worry too much about the state taking you out simply because you're an anarchist on Discord. If you're starting to engage in counter-economic activity, particularly black market activity, not just like shoveling snow off driveways
in Minecraft,
as in gray market activity, then you should probably watch your back. But just having certain opinions is not yet illegal.
Well, yeah. But you've heard what the Biden administration is going to do with making this huge push for hate speech legislation.
Best not to take shit like what the state says seriously until they start actually acting, because most of it's just setting up narratives.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sure,
it's a propaganda. That strikes me as a milker bill.
Milker bill?
Yeah, milker bill.
Right.
You know what that is?
No.
A milker bill is legislation that is proposed in order to scare people who are interested on one side or the other of a particular position into donating to politicians to try to sway their opinion to one side or the other. So, for example, if I have legislation that's going to ban milk, will the legislation ever pass Congress? No. Will it ever be signed by the President of the United States? Should it somehow pass Congress? No. If the president vetoes it, is there any chance that it would be overturned by a veto-proof majority? Hell no. The whole point is that you put it forward, you get the press to talk about it, and then suddenly dairy farmers get spooked and they donate tens of thousands of dollars to individual Congress people's foundations, to their presidential campaigns, to their congressional campaigns. And you can get the whole thing is just like it's a mob shakedown. And then what happens is that the proposal doesn't pass at all, and the dairy farmers can declare victory.
Right.
That's basically how milk. That's an explanation.
So it's basically
for how
a political red herring, essentially.
No, it's a political shakedown. Okay. But anyways, I do gotta get going now.
It's been very nice having you on the stream.
Well.
Very nice talking with you,
Thanks for coming, Lord Phil.
Thanks for having me on. Bye.
I should end this stream. It's kind of goes on long.
Nothing to talk about now that Lord Phil's gone.
Not if you have anything else to talk about. I kind of got that all off my chest, and I still have a lot to know about the theory, so I can better articulate just why I'm a voluntarist. But I think my heart's in the right place. That's a good start.
Well, if you're against violence, then yes, your heart's in the right place.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm against all violence. I still believe in self-defense and
the initiation of force would be a better phrasing for that.
Yeah. But I still believe that everyone should have a right to defend themselves against the initiation of force and responding in kind to people who wish to harm you and your property or your family or your interests.
Well, yeah, nobody thinks that you shouldn't defend yourself unless they're a statist.
It makes sense. But, ethical pirates finally showed up. It took her late enough. It's too late now. I'm kind of closing this stream down. But what else can I say other than I really don't want to answer any of the other questions about how serious I am on a live stream, because that, unless I can say in Minecraft, but that's for more Mumble or, private Discord server.
Well, if you're just recently an anarchist, you wouldn't be able to know too much anyway. You have to do some research, ask some questions, get those questions answered, etc.
I mean, I barely have any connections as is anyways, so I'm kind of just, what do you say, in green? So I'm still trying to figure out how agorism really works here, but buying cryptocurrency is a good start.
Well, I can explain agorism to a degree. Were you going to answer his question? Oh, no, he's gone. Damn. I thought Faith was still here.
No, he left with Filthy. Is the stream just you? No, it's not. Dust Kitty's been pretty civil, ethical. Hang on.
I'm always civil. That's not how you spell sins.
Yeah, I've kind of always had that problem with since flub. Yeah, I should have spelled it the other since.
Oh, but what I was going to say is that agorism is actually pretty simple to understand. Basically, you just subvert the state's monopoly on things, such as money. For example, if you're trading in crypto, then that's something that the government can't tax, so you're depriving the state of resources. Otherwise, other examples are like if the government has a monopoly on a specific product and you're exchanging in that product, then you're also undermining the state's monopoly on something, and that deprives them of resources also. For example, they have drugs. They have drugs as illegal in most places. So if you're selling drugs and buying drugs, the government can't make money off of that, and you're still depriving them of resources there too. In fact, the reason that they have drugs illegal is because they want to be the sole distributor of drugs.
Right.
You're not going to question that?
Well, I have a lot of concerns with people who deal with hard drugs, but
well, you don't have yourself.
I can disapprove of it, but to be consistent, I can't really do anything about that. The best I could do is form arguments on why the harmful effects of addiction and the like.
Well, sure. I disagree with doing drugs also. I just don't want to use violence to keep people from doing drugs. But the point wasn't the drugs themselves. It was the fact that the government attempts to have a monopoly on that, and exchanging it would undermine that monopoly.
We kind of
That's
all
the point, not the
kind
drugs
of
themselves.
Figured out by now that the CIA basically has a monopoly on cocaine dealing.
Yep. The government has direct connections to all of the biggest drug cartels in Mexico, for example.
They're fighting the monster
connections
that they themselves created, and then taking credit for fighting that monster. Yeah, That is statist logic for you. They're taking credit for solving problems that they created themselves. That is the most. That is. It has to be the most disgusting of ironies of any state. We're gonna fix the problem that we caused. Yay! Give us credit. Yay!
Oh, also they like to pretend they're doing something good by noticing a trend in something and then jumping in front of the parade. Have I ever told you about the seatbelt thing?
Oh yeah, the seatbelt ticket. Yeah, click it or ticket campaign.
No, not that. So basically, vehicles started being produced with seatbelts, like back near the time when vehicles first started being produced. They started putting seatbelts in them, and then after seatbelts were already being widely used for like a year, the government then mandated that all vehicles had to be produced with seats. So the government noticed a trend, that being seatbelt, and then tried to take credit for that by saying, yeah, now that we've mandated seatbelts, everybody's got seatbelts in them.
That is weird. So the government passed a law for something that was already widespread.
Yes. So that they could take credit for safety.
The state is useless.
Yep.
And you want to know another thing I found out?
Sure.
It has to do with NASA. They knew the Challenger was going to blow up. They had one of the engineers warned about it and everything, but they launched the shuttle anyways because they didn't believe him. So yeah,
I'd believe that.
the government is responsible for the worst aerospace disaster in recent history.
Also 9/11.
Oh, you're one of the truthers, I see.
Oh, there's a shitload of evidence. If you'd like, I can send you the documentary about it. They go over all of the evidence that the government was responsible. If you want just a few bullet points, the government disarmed all of the all of the jets that were sent to intercept the planes, and they also had been doing simulations for a while to train them to intercept shuttle or aircraft that were going to crash into something. And they were running those simulations while the aircraft were going to intercept it. And those simulations caused the aircrafts or the jets to go to the wrong places. And despite repeated requests to shut off the simulations, they kept them going for 4 hours. So yeah, they very much sabotaged all of the people that were sent to stop 9/11.
You do realize if those simulations weren't running, that they'd have to shoot down those planes, right?
They would have to shoot down the planes, yes, but since it's a simulation, they wouldn't have to actually shoot down actual planes.
I mean, if the simulations weren't running, that's kind of what I was asking about. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. It's kind of one of those dilemmas.
Yeah, they had to do what they had to do, but they were prevented from doing what they had to do by the government.
Ugh.
That was the point. But would you like me to send you the documentary? It's a long one, though. Because there's a lot of evidence that the government.
Well, I remember being sent
9/11.
a short recap of 9/11 by this high impact flicks person about how ridiculous the whole scenario really was. Well, not ridiculous, but like how these pilots who were trained in Cessnas were able to fly these Boeing 777 jets flawlessly. That's a bit stretch, but yeah, they had to have some special training. But anyways, I should...
Hold on, I'm looking for it. Found it.
Anyways, I'm going to get this live stream to a close so we can just talk in private. Thanks for watching, everyone, and
All right, sure.
you